Welcome back. You're watching McLeod on Rogers Television, and our guest in this half hour is Jeff Preston, who's a student at the University of Western Ontario and an advocate for better services for the disabled. And Jeff, it strikes me that we don't do an awful lot for disabled people in this city and in this province. We do have some doors that open automatically, and in fact, you pointed that out to me when you came in, although the door opens in your face, and I don't know how you deal with that. We have some ramps for wheelchairs, I guess. In some places we have a few pedestrian walk signs that will beep when they're about to change, but not much else. I mean, what would you like to see in a perfect world?
Well, in a perfect world, there's all sorts of things that I'd like to see. In a perfect world, Canada would have a National Disability Rights Act. The United States has a national act called the Americans with Disabilities Act. In Canada, we don't have a national act. We have a lot of different provincial acts. Specifically in Ontario, we have the Ontarians with Disabilities Act, which has actually recently been changed to the Accessibility for Ontarians with Disabilities Act, or the AODA. But there is no unifying policy on that. And the purpose, or the reason why that would be really nice, is for something called universal design, which is a mode of thinking, a way of thinking that states that buildings should be universally accessible to everyone. You know, something I tell people, and it sort of astonishes them, as I say, stairs are accessibility. Stairs are about accessibility. They're not accessible for myself. I'm not able to use stairs. However, for everybody else, the stairs are accessible. It allows you to get inside buildings that are higher up than you'd be able to otherwise walk. So if you're okay with stairs, if you say that, yes, buildings should have stairs so we can get in them, then you're really talking the same language as ramps. Ramps are important. Power doors are important. But really, in my personal opinion, we need to be doing more work on attitudinal. The attitudinal barriers is the first and foremost. We need to start understanding what it means to be disabled. There's too many misnomers and misconceptions about disability. This whole notion that disability is very intimately related to sickness, for instance, and loss, inability, which I've always thought funny because everybody has things they're not able to do. Everyone has lack of ability of some variety. Once we start pushing through that and we start accepting that people with disabilities are no different than everybody else, then we basically we have the inroad to begin making these types of changes where people will accept it and say, yes, well, I appreciate it's more expensive, perhaps, not always, but perhaps more expensive to make some of these quote-unquote accommodations. It is a necessity because if I was in that situation, I wouldn't want to be treated any differently.
One of the, I suppose, the realities would be that the disabled community doesn't make a lot of noise about this. Why are you so accepting, I guess, of this second-class treatment?
I'm really not sure. There's lots of different reasons and lots of things that I have seen through my studies and through lived experience. And some of the reasons I think that we really need to look at is, number one, a lack of education in the disabled population. The disabled population is horrifically undereducated. Something to the tune of 80% don't go on to post-secondary education, get out with basically a grade 12 general. Not only that, but to this day, right now, happening in 2008 in Ontario, there are still people who are being forced into developmental learning classes because they're in wheelchairs, and the schools are putting them into these classes, which means that they don't have the grades or the classes that are required to get into university. So even though they don't have a developmental or a learning disability of some variety, they're being put in there because that's how budgets are arranged, and that if they're disabled and they need accommodation, they're going to be put into these classrooms, basically. So that it's very difficult to get into post-secondary on the school side, but also on the financial side. The fact that unemployment is rampant in the disabled community. Basically, they're living on, we're basically living on the Ontario Disability Support Program, which keeps us just a bit below the poverty line. And we're not able to get off of it because we can't save enough money to be able to pay for education. So I think that's one part of it. Another part of it is that the disabled population really in Ontario and in Canada and even in the States is a population that has just recently gotten out of the institutions. That up until 20 years ago, people with disabilities were being put away into homes, basically group homes, where they were left to sort of languish and anguish with each other, and they weren't going out into the community, and they had nothing. So I think a lot of these issues, the fact that we're just starting to get out now, we're accepting of what little gains we can make without really sitting back and saying, if anybody else was being put through this, if anyone else was experiencing this, they would never stand for it. They would never allow this type of treatment to happen.
Good point. We're with Jeff Preston, who is an advocate for better services for the disabled. You're watching McLeod on Rogers Television. We'll be back right after this.